The War Within Alpha just released today, and with that came an interesting comment regarding PvP from game director Ian Hazzikostas on the direction PvP is moving in the next expansion. Here's why that could be a good thing for the future of PvP and what would need to happen for PvP to see a resurgence in the War Within. What's up folks, Moon here. As many of you have seen already, the alpha gameplay for the War Within was released today alongside an interview with Ian Hazzikostas, Tina Wang, and Bethany Stout talking about the future of the game. While the full interview is public, I want to talk about specific notes regarding PvP which they discussed. Without further ado, let's get right into it. It appears as though the direction of which PvP is going in the War Within is shifting focus away from arenas being the standard of PvP and instead replacing it with the new solo queue RBG mode. Ian Hazzikostas said the following: "We're happy to move to that as the default of how rated battlegrounds are going to work moving forward. I think we're really excited to make that battleground experience that I've personally always felt is the best part of WoW PvP. That larger scale, more cooperative, objective-based, collaborative, competitive setting as opposed to the deathmatch style of Arena, to make that more accessible to everyone who loves battlegrounds and loves PvP. Now, I put on Twitter that I'm personally excited and welcoming of this change, which elicited some strong emotions on either side of the argument. As 200 characters isn't enough to convey all of my thoughts simultaneously, I figured I would make a video to go over everything in detail. I want to clarify my bias by stating that while I prefer Arena, I initially got hooked into rated PvP by starting out in rated battlegrounds, and from there transitioning to becoming an Arena player. I enjoy playing both game modes and personally would like it if both succeeded. Now, let's talk about the differences between rated battlegrounds and Arena. I'm going to use the BG Blitz format to describe rated battlegrounds. So, with rated battlegrounds, you're going to have a team with 8 players on each side. 2 healers, and 5 to 6 DPS depending if you have a tank or not. The win condition for RBGs are through objectives, such as holding bases, capturing flags, or pushing minecarts. This game mode focuses heavily on macro play, which is holistic in nature and easier to pick up. With Arena, teams are only in sizes of 3, with 2 DPS and 1 healer on each team. This game mode is a team deathmatch format, with the win objective being to score a kill on the enemy team and focuses heavily on the micro gameplay of PvP. That being knowledge of every class, not just your own, crowd control, knowing how to do the maximum damage or healing on your class, diminishing returns, team compositions, cooldown trading, kiting, etc. These are the finer details of gameplay mastery that will make or break your ability to succeed in Arena. While Arena can be beautiful to watch at the higher end of the ladder, and while virtually every successful PvP content creator is an Arena player, it needs to be said that of the 2 game modes, Arena is significantly more inaccessible to the player base at large. While I may be wrong on the accuracy of this figure, there was a recent figure which showed that only 7% of the player base actively plays PvP, with it likely dwindling further as Dragonflight Season 3 continues. What I'm trying to convey here is that PvP is in a dire state where it is both actively hemorrhaging players and simultaneously acquiring no new players. Solo Shuffle's half-baked implementation caused a rift in the already small Arena community, which made Arena even more inaccessible to play. Between the long queue times, harming participation in a 3v3 bracket, and glaring issues with MMR causing healer participation in tank, Arena saw a mass exodus of players quitting the game. So, if WoW PvP wants any hope of seeing a resurgence of players, it needs to be more accessible to a larger audience and rewarding to play, as much as the hardcore players will gripe and moan at the prospect. Now you may be saying, Moon, didn't Ian Hazzikostas design raids or something before becoming the game director? Why should we care about what he has to say about PvP? That's because it's through Ian that we will likely see any changes within PvP at all. For those who aren't already aware, PvP has no dedicated developers working on it. As it currently stands, there is one single developer who is working on PvP, and it's only part-time on top of other responsibilities. While I prefer that Blizzard gets the stick out of their ass and hires a dedicated PvP developer, for now, we just have to accept that PvP isn't currently popular within the larger player base and needs something that's low maintenance, sustainable, and fun to bring enough players into the mode to justify hiring a PvP developer. It seems like that's the objective they're trying to work towards with the Battleground Blitz experience and in trying to implement that as the standard of PvP. Now, here's why I'm personally welcoming to this change and how I think it can be good for the entirety of the PvP scene as a whole. As we've discussed earlier, rated battlegrounds are a significantly more accessible format of PvP because the barrier to entry isn't anywhere near as high as Arena. Composition matters less, you don't really need to know what every single class does, gameplay is more objective based, and more people on each team allows for players to be able to make more mistakes without it completely screwing over the entire team. This is perfect for someone who's just getting started in rated PvP to be able to dip their toes into, and eases them into the beginning of their PvP journey. I personally believe this will translate to more arena players down the line as well, as arena seems to be the next step up regarding progression and skill, and as a general principle, players who are refined in their micro gameplay can thrive pretty well in a mode with macro gameplay. Think of it like a funnel. As it stands now, there isn't really a great funnel for captivating players in PvP. Arena is widely seen as the standard of PvP, and its high barrier to entry makes many new players want to not jump in or invest the significant amount of time it takes to be decent at Arena. Very few players are playing rated Battlegrounds in its current 10v10 pre-made format, and the few that do are so disconnected from the Arena scene that the two virtually never interact. It's why here I have RBGs illustrated as being the rim of the funnel, as most of the stuff that hits it never actually makes it in. But if we shift the standard of PvP to rated Battlegrounds, and then make the mode accessible for players to get into, we'll see a more healthy funnel of players that may be emboldened to enter the arena scene who otherwise wouldn't have previously. I envision that if this goes well, we'll see players who want to be better RBG players sharpen their skills within arena, and the influx of players would do very well for the overall ladder health in arena by proxy. I know what you're thinking. This is wishful thinking and all, but we've seen the disaster that the solo queue game mode for Arena did to the arena scene. What's going to make this any different? Honestly, I don't know if this will be any different. Keeping it real, being constantly let down by Blizzard's poor maintenance of PvP has me just as weary about anything they're wanting to try, as deep down I fear the history of incompetence killing PvP off as a whole. However, I think a lot of the issues that solo queue Arena has experienced will not be present in a solo queue RBG mode. For this competitive mode to be viable, here are the issues that need to be addressed. Number one is first and foremost queue times. While a lot of players historically were okay with solo shuffle, the biggest complaint surrounding it was that people just flat out were not able to play the game mode, as queue times were on average around 40 minutes per lobby. With the arena format, there was a healer that was required to queue for every 2 DPS queuing. Blizzard's statistics showed that on average there were around 4 to 5 DPS queuing for every healer, and while there was a lack of healers queuing due to various reasons, the point is that there was a massive backlog of DPS waiting to play the game because there were only so many healers to go around. I think this issue will be slightly lessened with the new game mode, as now a healer will only be needed for every 3 DPS compared to every 2 DPS with Arena. This is kinda good with the ratio having been widened a bit, but it won't mean anything if they can't address the next point, which is number 2, getting healers to want to play the game. With unfair matchmaking, a bad MMR system, and an overall lack of agency due to quick dampening in an uncoordinated game mode, many healers chose to play 3v3 Arena or outright quit the game with the abysmal state of how solo shuffle was for them. The state of healing in solo shuffle was outright laughable, as not only were you on the receiving end of toxicity from your DPS, you were significantly more punished by the system compared to them as well. This is going to be a bold prediction by me, but as a healer main, I actually see most of these issues getting resolved with the BG Blitz game mode. Outside of stealth DPS classes such as rogues, druids, and hunters, healers are surprisingly one of the more powerful roles in a battleground. A good healer can keep a team alive for a long time in a battleground setting, and generally has a lot more agency over the course of the game. With no additional healing reduction factors such as dampening at play, a healer really is only limited by their skill level and their mana bar. I can see this mode being appealing to more healers, and if more healers are queuing, queue times are better for everyone across the board. Something else to mention regarding the solo queue rated mode as well is that the healers have the option to duo queue. I feel like this ability alone will make people who weren't initially inclined to heal try to give healing a go, as being able to play a battleground with a friend can make it leagues more fun. The third thing that would need to be addressed would be the MMR system, and to make matchmaking fair and balanced. As healers and DPS are on separate ladders in solo shuffle, healers tend to get shafted and end up hundreds of points lower than their DPS counterparts. For this, I personally see Blizzard keeping everyone on the same ladder regardless of role. As it stands now, if everyone in a rated battleground is around the same rating, a win or loss makes it to where the entire team wins or loses that amount of points. Keeping everyone on the same ladder will do leagues for having a reasonable amount of rating inflation, as more players are on the ladder and are able to climb higher. This also translates to having more fair lobbies, as the rating would in theory be spread out more evenly amongst the player base, giving for more fair matchmaking. The last thing would be to implement some sort of feasible and appealing reward structure to make players want to play PvP. Outside of titles and ranks, Blizzard doesn't really have anything set for cool reward to get people playing this mode of PvP, and I think if they're able to get a reward reward structure that's reasonable and entices players to want to PvP, then I can foresee this new era of PvP having lots of success. I've personally had a ton of fun playing Battleground Blitz thus far, and I know the main reason for its decline is that there's not much else going to be gotten from it at the moment. I'm unsure if adding raiding to the mode will inherently make it better or worse overall, but I'm excited to see how it plays out. I also think it'd be really cool to see an 8v8 Battleground tournament at BlizzCon, but one can only dream, I guess. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. If you like having these types of discussions and want to see more of them, let me know by subscribing. It really helps me out a lot. Until next time, this is Moon, signing out.